Major breaking news. The United States Supreme Court has just granted cert in a case, Donald Trump versus Barbara, that deals with the so-called birthright citizenship question. There is no more important issue involving our Second Amendment rights than making sure that the children of illegal aliens and people who have committed fraud to break into our country to give birth to babies that become anchor babies and voters against the American interest. This is the most important issue we face, dealing with foreigners invading our country in various ways and altering American law, heritage, and yes, indeed, our right to keep and bear arms. We're going to break down this big case of Barbara. This is a doozy, folks, a big one, and I want you to understand why it's so important and how to think about it when we come right back. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxes Down, a proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and I'm proud to say the top voice of the Second Amendment in America. Thank you, 2025 Gundies Awards. And as you know, the voting for the 2026 Gundies Awards for the top voice of the Second Amendment, top voices of the 2A, is ongoing right now. You can vote once a day from now until December 15th. I'm nominated again in the category of top voices of the 2A. We got some stiff competition, so I would appreciate your support if you're willing to vote for me once a day over there at thegundies.com. Vote for Mark Smith, Four Boxes Diner, in the top voices of the 2A. All right, folks, so this is a big Supreme Court decision. As I've tried to explain to you on this channel over and over and over again, there are certain issues in order to protect our right to keep and bear arms and our entire constitutional republic, to protect America as we understand it and as we love it. There are many other issues that must prevail for us to preserve this country and our Constitution, and yes, indeed, our right to keep and bear arms. And some of them don't specifically deal with Second Amendment jurisprudence. One such example is the birthright citizenship question. For those of you who are not familiar with this is how current law has been for many decades, thanks largely to the fact that no one could bring a lawsuit to challenge this particular theory I'm about to give you, and thus it has been the law of the land by default without an actual decision by the U.S. Supreme Court on this issue. And what am I talking about? This is the birthright citizenship issue. And what does that mean? Under the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, people who are born in the United States, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are American citizens. That's a conjunctive test. There's two things for you to be an American citizen. Number one is you have to be born in the United States. And number two is you have to be considered subject to the jurisdiction thereof. When you talk to the lefties, all they want to do is say that if you're born in the United States, you're automatically a citizen. They ignore that other part of the 14th Amendment that reads, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Now, let me tell you why this is important to the Second Amendment and to America as we know it. The game that has been played for many decades is the anchor baby game. Now, I actually wrote an entire chapter on this in 2006. So I'm one of the people that was in the fore on this issue of anchor babies and birthright citizenship. What is an anchor baby and why is it a problem to our right to keep and bear arms and more? The way the game gets played is one of two ways. Foreigners, non-Americans, people from Latin America, from Africa, doesn't matter where, they break into the country illegally as illegal immigrants, or they overstay their visas as illegal immigrants for years and years and years, or even a day for that matter, under certain circumstances. And as they are in the United States, they give birth to a baby. Under the left-wing interpretation of the 14th Amendment that has not been challenged until now in court, for various reasons, guess what? That baby is now an American citizen. That baby becomes an anchor baby. An anchor baby for what? That baby, an American citizen, is an anchor baby under the family reunification laws for that illegal alien mom or the illegal alien parents to stay in the United States with their American citizen child. At which point, under their family reunification laws, they start bringing in other people from their home countries. And next thing you know, a single anchor baby serves as the anchor to import multiple people from overseas that have no connection to the United States, to our Constitution, to our republic, to our heritage, or our traditions, or anything. And next thing you know, they're voting in our elections for the Democrats, for more welfare, for more free stuff. That is the party line of the Democrats. That is why they want third worlders to come here, give birth to babies, anchor babies, and import their entire families here to become the next generation of American voters, to outvote you and I, and to eliminate, among other things, our Bill of Rights, including our right to keep and bear arms, and much more. The other way the game gets played is really through fraudulent tourist visas. Fraudulent tourist visas. And what does that mean? The way the game gets played, there's many reports of this. I actually reported about this in 2006 in my book, Disarmed. No need to buy the book. I'm telling you about it here. But in that chapter, I talk about anchor babies. The chapter title, by the way, was called Anchor Babies Away. By the way, catchy title for a chapter, right? The way the fraud works with the tourists is this. There are hospitals that speak only one particular foreign language. So what happens is the pregnant mom often lies that she's not pregnant to come into America. She then goes to a hospital or a clinic or some other facility that is operated entirely by people that speak that language. It could be the Chinese language, could be the Japanese language, could be the Korean language. Doesn't matter what the name, you get the point. That's an illustration, of course. Everyone there, all the doctors and nurses speak that particular language, and that pregnant mom that has lied on her tourist visa form to say, I'm not pregnant, I'm coming to the United States with my visa, but I'm not pregnant. They come into the United States pregnant, and then they give birth in hospitals that are literally designed to cater to this particular scenario. And yes, again, that baby becomes automatically, under the left-wing interpretation of the 14th Amendment, an American citizen, and yes, again, serves as an anchor baby for the parents and the rest of that family to be imported into America under the family reunification laws and vote for the Democrats. That is the game that has been played literally for decades, which is why a reason why we have 30, 40, 50 million foreigners in the United States, many of whom are voting against American interests. This is why we need to get rid of them. And I've talked a lot about this. This is why we was involved in the Trump campaign in 2015 and 2016. All the way back then, because I thought, among other things, this was a critical issue. So now, where are we today? The Supreme Court has just granted cert on this question because Donald Trump wisely issued an executive order saying that going forward, that the children of illegal immigrants are no longer going to be automatically American citizens, because just being born in the United States is not sufficient. You also have to be subject to the jurisdiction thereof, and that means a lot more than simply just being here in America where you have to obey traffic signs. That's not what subject to the jurisdiction means. We'll get to that in just one moment. So President Trump effectuated that executive order, I think, on his first day of office, a promise given, a promise made, and a promise delivered on that point. And there was a whole series of lawsuits, including, yes, of course, in the United States Court of Appeals for the First Circuit, because we know the First Circuit Court of Appeals out of Boston is America's worst court if you actually love America. It is worse than the Ninth Circuit because there's no Judge Lawrence Van Dyke on the First Circuit or anyone like that. They will rubber stamp every insane left-wing propaganda nutjob idea in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the First Circuit in Boston. Everyone understands that. That's why the left always likes to sue in the Northeast to benefit from the U.S. Court of Appeals in the First Circuit. And again, if you haven't taken a look at the images and photographs of the courthouse built in part by Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer, who is out of Boston, then take a look at that and you'll see the extravaganza of Versailles in Boston that houses the federal judges in Boston, those anti-Americans, in my opinion. Okay, so with that said, the First Circuit, needless to say, that said that Donald Trump's interpretation of the 14th Amendment was wrong, that all you need to do is be birthed by a mom in America, and it doesn't matter if the mom is an illegal alien, it doesn't matter. If you're born in the United States, that is sufficient to be both born in the United States and conjunctively subject to the jurisdiction thereof. It has no other meaning. That is enough, because remember, the left wing wants to import new voters. They want to import new Americans because they don't like the current Americans because we don't vote for their nutjob European communist agenda. That's just the reality on the ground. So they want to bring in people that want to suck at the teat of big government in form of welfare programs and people that cater to the welfare programs as well. It's not just the people that get the free money from the government. It's also the people that get to work on handing out the free money that's part of the grift, in my view. All right, so that's how this has been teed up, and the Supreme Court just granted cert in a case of Trump versus Barbara on the question presented. And here's the question presented, teed off by the U.S. Supreme Court at the request of Solicitor General John Sauer on behalf of the Trump administration. On January 20th, 2025, President Trump issued Executive Order number 14,160, protecting the meaning and value of American citizenship, which restores the original meaning of the Citizenship Clause and provides, on a prospective basis only, that means going forward, that children of temporary visitors and illegal aliens are not U.S. citizens by birth. The Citizenship Order directs federal agencies not to issue or accept citizenship documents for such children born more than 30 days after the order's effective date. The question presented thus is whether the executive order of Donald Trump complies on its face with the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and with Federal Statute 8 U.S.C. 1401A, which codifies that clause. So that's the question, folks. And really what the question is not the are you born in America? People can figure that part out. It's what does subject to the jurisdiction thereof mean? So we could spend a lot of time on this question, but I'm going to keep it simple for you. I think Donald Trump has the better argument. I laid that out in various ways in my book in 2006 on Anchor Babies Away. But I have an even more robust argument for you here. And we will do other videos about this as well because it's going to keep coming up in the press. And I want you to understand that to be the smartest person in the room. To start with, we want to start with English history and compare it to American history. This is important. Under English law, they had a doctrine known as perpetual allegiance. Perpetual allegiance. And the reason why this is important, and listen carefully, there is a critical distinction in discussing the meaning of subject to the jurisdiction thereof under the 14th Amendment. A critical distinction, and this is the distinction you must understand. There is a distinction between territorial jurisdiction, if you will, and political or allegiance jurisdiction. Hear what I just said? There's a critical distinction when you talk about subject to the jurisdiction thereof under the 14th Amendment between territorial jurisdiction, meaning the jurisdiction has the government has jurisdiction over your physical body for a moment, versus a loyal political or cultural allegiance, if you will. They're different. Territorial allegiance is simply, I'm in the United States, I'm in New York City, I have to comply with the traffic laws. I have to stop at the red lights. I have to stop at the stop signs. I have to cross in the crosswalks. I cannot jaywalk. I'm not allowed to commit murder on Fifth Avenue. I'm not allowed to rob a bank. The left wants subject to the jurisdiction thereof to simply mean that you have to comply with the laws of the country in which you are born, i.e. in the United States. That's it. But that is not correct. The proper understanding of jurisdictions for the 14th Amendment subject to the jurisdiction thereof is political allegiance or political loyalty jurisdiction. Specifically, that not only are you born in the United States, but you and your parents are loyal to the United States as a matter of politics. Now, this is a critical distinction because in England, and the American founders utterly rejected what I'm about to say. In England, as Blackstone's commentaries talked about forever, if you are born in the English Commonwealth, if you were born in England, no matter who you were, no matter who your parents were, you were loyal to the king, and the king could retain your services and send you abroad to fight wars abroad, including, let's say, in France. The notion was once you're born in English or in English territory, you were beholden to the King of England. You were his subject, period. And there's nothing you could do about it. That was English law. Needless to say, our American founders utterly rejected that aspect of English law, and that is well established. There's no debate about that. The American rule is that not only that you as an American or you as a citizen get to pick where you live in the world, provided that you have the consent of the country in which you want to move to. So even if you're born in England, if you want to move to the United States and the United States is willing to let you in, you have that right as an individual to leave England and come to the United States and become an American, no matter what the English law or the English king says. It always turned on loyalty to the country, going all the way back to the founding of our country. But then we get into the Civil War period, and this is critically important. What do we fight a Civil War about in 1861 to 1865? And that is the Civil War over slavery, whether or not we can continue to have slavery in the South. Should we stick together as a country? Can we break up as a country? And so on. The reason why this is important, and listen carefully, this is critically important. If you only remember one thing about this video, this is it. In 1866, Congress enacted a federal statute, not a constitutional amendment, a statute called the Civil Rights Act of 1866. In it, it defined who the citizens were that were born in the United States. And you had to be born in the United States and you had to be subject to its jurisdiction. And in the Civil Rights Act of 1866, it specifically said in the statute that you had to be someone who was not subject to a foreign power. Here I just said not subject to a foreign power. That was in the federal statute, the Civil Rights Law of 1866. But then Congress realized that this was just a statute that could be changed by a future Congress. So they said we need to amend the Constitution, and the 1866 Civil Rights Statute was understood to be codified by the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment's language that to be a citizen, you have to be born in the United States, number one, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, was supposed to be the same and understood the same as the 1866 Civil Rights Statute that says you have to be born in the United States and you have to be someone who is not subject to any foreign power. Again, it's a test of loyalty for your parents and not simply being popped out by some mom in the middle of Montana. That is not enough. And because there's no debate that the 14th Amendment was designed to codify the Civil Rights Statute or Civil Rights Act of 1866, that was understood to be the meaning of the 14th Amendment. Beyond that, if you want to understand why political loyalty was key to be a citizen, all you need to look at is the way American Indians were treated from the time of the founding through 1924. Keep this in mind. Key date. I don't ask you to remember many dates, but I'm going to do this one. 1924 was the date of the Snyder Act. It was in 1924, for the first time ever, Indians living in America were all viewed or treated or designated to be American citizens. Prior to that, only certain Indians who were taxed by American government were deemed American citizens. But those Indians living on reservations or otherwise not connected to the American polity were not taxed, and they were not American citizens. Again, the whole concept of citizenship from the start of the country through 1924 at least, and including today, I would say, turns on political loyalty. Your parents, it's not just enough that your parents are into America and they pop you out and that turns you into an automatic American citizen and Democratic voter. No. Your parents have to be loyal to the country. Breaking into the country or committing fraud to sneak in the country to give birth to a baby should not give rise to an anchor baby as a matter of politics, and also as a matter of history behind the 14th Amendment is the same answer. It's all about political allegiance in addition to being born in the United States that gives rise to citizenship. And again, it's simply not enough that you happen to be popped out by an illegal alien in Texas or by someone that committed fraud to break into the country to give birth to an anchor baby. That is not a basis, and that is what Donald Trump's executive order hits home with. And I think there's an excellent chance that Donald Trump's going to win this case, but we will break these details more as we get closer to oral argument. But I hope this gives you a general overview of why I think Trump can win over the 14th Amendment, and don't buy the hype that Trump's arguments are frivolous, because that is utter BS. And you'll see that as the arguments get closer. All right, folks, there you have it. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you follow me on X at 4Boxes Diner. Don't forget to subscribe to YouTube and to Rumble, and I'll talk to you again real soon here at the 4Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.